Alapa and welcome. It is Sunday, August 8th, 2021. We welcome you to this fifth session of Advent of Divine Justice. More importantly, we will be discussing today paragraphs 12 through 15 of Advent of Divine Justice. And we have with us today Ehsan Bayat, the founder and the progenitor of the Crimson Academy. Now, with that being said, please let's welcome Ehsan Bayat. Hello, Ehsan.
Alapa, dear John. Hope you're doing well.
Fine, thank you. So, those of you who are joining us on Zoom or on Facebook, let me remind you that we have a Zoom connection that you can always join at any point in time. It's live streamed on Facebook and on YouTube. However, you can also access this by going to www.clearwaterbaha'is.org. You can view previous sessions there. You can also learn more about these Advent and Divine Justice sessions and how to join on Facebook, on YouTube, but more importantly on Zoom. So with that being said, as we are going to begin, we are going to start with an opening prayer. And this will be the prayer for the Southern States, a teaching prayer. Let me share my screen. Here we are. Now, dear Soros, if you could please read this prayer to us.
O my God, thou seest me in my lowliness and weakness, occupied with the greatest undertaking, determined to raise thy word among the masses, and to spread thy teachings among thy peoples. How can I succeed unless thou assist me with the breath of the Holy Spirit? Help me to triumph by the hosts of thy glorious kingdom, and shower upon me thy confirmations, which alone can change a gnat into an eagle, a drop of water into rivers and seas, and an atom into lights and suns. O my Lord, assist me with thy triumphant and effective might, so that my tongue may utter thy praises and attributes among all people, and my soul overflow with the wine of thy love and knowledge. Thou art the omnipotent and the doer of whatsoever thou willest. Abdul Baha.
Thank you so much. With that being said, dear Ehsan, we are ready for you to begin this beautiful presentation, this next part of Advent Divine Justice, that is paragraphs 12 through 15.
Thank you very much, dear John. And excuse my little one crying in the background. My wife is looking after him. And so welcome back, everyone. So as you recall, in paragraphs 10 through 11, the beloved guardian was laying out these convulsions that were happening all around the world. This region, that region, war here coming, as it was written in 1938. So he was foreshadowing a world war, a climactic environment, one place after another. He was just laying it out. So that was in our last section. Now we're entering paragraphs 12 through 15. So let's see now what the beloved guardian is now going to be addressing. So let me share my screen so we can start getting into it. Okay, and boom, here we go. Paragraphs 12 through 15. Now, in the wonderful, wonderful style of the beloved guardian, he always gives crisis, and then he gives the victory. He gives the challenges, then he gives the ray of light and the hope. And so he presents the crises, what the world is going through, the dire situations. But then in paragraphs 12 through 15, he is now presenting the ray of light. And this ray of light is the cradle and stronghold of the New World Order. This little nascent community, the North American Bahá'í community, the fledgling hope and light that is emerging in this sea of darkness. Then he starts going into more details, addressing this Baha'i community of North America, and he addresses what is to come, the glory of the Golden Age. And because the beloved guardian is addressing the Golden Age, in one of his letters prior, in one of the World Order letters, it was called The Unfoldment of World Civilization. It was written in, off the top of my head, March 11th, 1936. Now, March 11th, 1936 was his last World Order letter, and that one is where he really writes about the details of this Baha'i world commonwealth that is going to be unfurled. And so that's an extremely exciting letter, and the Academy, Crimson Academy, will be putting out a course hopefully in the near future on that one. So that one is an incredible letter. But we're right now focusing on Advent of Divine Justice. So let's start moving, dear friends. So paragraph 12. So let me have our first reader, Miss Sandra, if you could please read paragraph 12. Let me mute my screen.
The one chief remaining citadel, the mighty arm, which still raises aloft the standard of an unconquerable faith, is none other than the blessed community of the followers of the most great name in the North American continent. By its works, and through the unfailing protection vouchsafed to it by an almighty providence, this distinguished member of the body of the constantly interacting Baha'i communities of East and West bids fair to be universally regarded as the cradle, as well as the stronghold of that future New World Order, which is at once the promise and the glory of the dispensation associated with the name of Baha'u'llah.
Excellent. Okay, we'll come back and we're going to go detailed study through all of these. So let's get through them. So Rich John, paragraph 13, go for it.
Let anyone inclined to either belittle the unique station conferred upon this community, or to question the role it will be called upon to play in the days to come, ponder the implication of these pregnant and highly illuminating words uttered by Abdul-Baha, and addressed to it at a time when the fortunes of a world groaning beneath the burden of a devastating war had reached their lowest ebb. The continent of America, he so significantly wrote, is in the eyes of the one true God, the land wherein the splendors of his light shall be revealed, where the mysteries of his faith shall be unveiled, where the righteous will abide, and the free assemble.
Excellent, very well read, dear Surishan. Okay. Dear Alice, could you read this one for us?
Already the community of the believers. Oh Lord, I done lost it. How do I get back to it? Okay. Okay, now. Already the community of the believers of the North American continent, once the prime mover and pattern of the future communities which the faith of Baha'u'llah is distinguished, to raise up throughout the length and breadth of the Western Hemisphere, has despite the prevailing gloom, showing it capacity to be recognized as the torchbearer of the light. The I know what the word is. The repository of these mysteries, the exponent of that righteousness, and the sanctuary of that freedom. To what others lights can these above quote words possibility allude, if not to the light of the glory of the golden age of the faith of Baha'u'llah? What mysteries could Abdu'l-Baha has contemplated except the mystery of that embodied world order now evolved within the matrix of this administration? What righteousness, if not the righteousness who reign what age, and that order can alone establish. What freedom, but the freedom which the proclamation of this sovereign in the future of time must bestow.
Beautifully read, Miss Alice. Thank you so much. All right, I'll read this one. The community of the organized promoters of the faith of Baha'u'llah in the American continent, the spiritual descendants of the dawnbreakers of an heroic age who by their death proclaim the birth of that faith, must in turn usher in, not by their death, but through living sacrifice, that promised world order, the shell ordained to enshrine that priceless jewel, the world civilization of which the faith itself is the sole begetter. While its sister communities are bending beneath the tempestuous winds that beat upon them from every side, this community, preserved by the immutable decrees of the omnipotent ordainer and deriving continual sustenance from the mandate with which the tablets of the divine plan have invested it, is now busily engaged in laying the foundations and in fostering the growth of those institutions which are to herald the approach of the age destined to witness the birth and rise of the world order of Baha'u'llah. So, my dear friends, paragraphs 12 through 15, such energy, such power. Now the beloved guardian is laying out this last remaining citadel, his one chief remaining citadel, this mighty arm, namely the North American Baha'i community. And it's surrounded by darkness, by problems, by convulsions, and yet it is holding strong. And the beloved guardian is writing in these paragraphs, praising this fledgling community and praising their victories one after another. So this distinguished member of the body of the constantly interacting Baha'i communities of the East and West bids fair to be universally regarded as the cradle. So where has we heard the word cradle mentioned before? It is in regards to the original center of the faith, namely the cradle of the Baha'i community in Iran, the Persian Baha'i community. And here now the beloved guardian is writing that this North American Baha'i community is also considered as regarded as the cradle, as well as the stronghold of that future new world order. So here the beloved guardian is saying this North American Baha'i community is in the same regards and has achieved that distinction of launching itself in service and sacrifice, and is here regarded as the cradle for that future new world order. And we're going to be exploring all the things that the beloved guardian is saying compromises this Baha'i commonwealth. And why it's so important as Baha'is to study this is because when you say, I am a Baha'i, what are we working towards? What is it that we're working towards every day when you say, I am a Baha'i? What is the ultimate goal? We talk about the ultimate goal being, the golden age. You know, what is the golden age, right? Is it some airy, fairy idea, everyone kumbaya, holding hands and dancing around? But the beloved guardian goes into detail, specific, practical detail of how to do it, how to implement it. And as I mentioned, 1936 letter, Unfoldment of World Civilization, how to do it. And he spells it out. So we're going to, in this, because here the beloved guardian addresses in paragraphs, talking about how this nascent North American Baha'i community will lead the whole world towards this Baha'i world commonwealth. Okay, so and it mentions here in this paragraph 14, and that is the one that our dear Alice read, says, to what other light can these above quoted words possibly allude, if not to the light of the glory of the golden age of the faith of Baha'u'llah? So all these wonderful quotes addressing this moving of this community is addressing to what? The glory of the golden age of Baha'u'llah. So we're going to be exploring what is the ultimate goal. And so that's another thing that we'll be exploring. And so another incredible, quotable and honorific title of this Baha'i community of North America is found in paragraph 15. And this is paragraph 15, beginning it, the spiritual descendants of the dawnbreakers of an heroic age. Dear friends, I hope and I jure that every one of you has read and then gone further, reread, and then taken to the next level and mastered the Dawnbreakers. This is a book that should be read and reread. And because the Beloved Guardian says that is a book that every single friend should read cover to cover once a month. Now, I don't know if you've recently seen the Dawnbreakers. It's quite a hefty book, but even if you read it once every 3 months, that's something, dear friends, that you should try to do, because the Beloved Guardian says that is not just a book of our history of our cause. It is a book that generates energy into you. It generates zeal, passion, love, fervor, energy, and in every atom, and it creates a thing called certitude, right? There's a thing that's very important called Iran. Kitab Iran is called certitude. And when you have that certitude that why in God's name would the most brilliant minds of the country of Iran give up everything, sacrifice life, limb, property, and everything, and just give it away and follow this individual named the Blessed Bab, and then later follow someone named Baha'u'llah. Why? So that is our history when we say, I am a Baha'i. So you should know it. Not only know it here, but it gives you fire here. And that's why we should study our history, because we are here, the Beloved Guardian says, we are the descendants of those individuals. Those are our spiritual grandparents. Those are our spiritual grandparents. And so if that's my spiritual grandparent, by God, I want to make those spiritual grandparents happy and honored, right? So that my sacrifice, anything I do would be in honor of those people. So we have to look at it like that and think about how can I follow in their footsteps and make them proud. So dear friends, we're going to be jumping through this. This is an incredible section covering paragraphs 12 through 15 today. Okay. Short summary, the Beloved Guardian here is identifying this North American Baha'i community as the remaining fortress upholding the standards of the cause of His Holiness Baha'u'llah in this chaos surrounding the world at this time. Now, I pause right here for 2 seconds, and I'm not talking about America, okay? Remember, the Beloved Guardian, in his opening of his letter, when he was talking about all the problems in the world, namely Germany, Ashgabat, Palestine, and all the problems, from Russia, the United Soviet Union. We talked about, what was conflicts going on with China and Japan, and then we talked about Brazil and all the problems that were happening. United States also had incredible problems, namely vast amount of materialism that was going on that literally caused a massive stock market crash, but also it has got a massive problem of racism. This is 1920s, 1930s. If you just study the history, you will see that this is, you say, 1865, the slavery ended with the Emancipation Proclamation. God, no, it didn't. It went into wave after wave of massacres all throughout the country, lynching here, lynching there. And then they were very systematic in how they used incarceration to justify their economic enslavement. So we're not talking about the greater society of the American community, okay, as being the last fortress, the last stronghold. We're talking about specifically, dear friends, this North American Baha'i community, okay? This nascent community as being the last stronghold, the chief remaining stronghold to for this new world order of Baha'u'llah, and set apart from the darkness that surrounds it. And I honestly believe that His Holiness Abdul Baha, when he came to North America, and we're going to address a lot of interesting things coming up. One of them is, why did His Holiness Abdul Baha choose New York as the city of the covenant? That comes up. Why did, and then we'll also talk about different other things, such as all of these, why is the American Baha'i community so set apart and has such an incredible station? And we also see the contrast and this answer. Think about this question. Why has America got such a high station? This will be answered later, okay? So I'm not, that's as they say, a teaser. So think about that question and that answer will be coming up later, okay? So these are major key points, dear friends, major key points. In the Persian Bayan, this is the holy book of the Blessed Bab. There was obviously an Arabic Bayan, Persian Bayan, but in the Persian Bayan, the Blessed Bab announces the order that is associated with the revelation of Baha'u'llah. And so we're going to be touching on that also. In the Kitab Aqdas, His Holiness Baha'u'llah, he makes reference to this order as the New World Order. So this is in Kitab Aqdas itself. So this new order that is going to be coming forth in this Baha'i world commonwealth, Baha'u'llah even gives it the name, the New World Order. The beloved guardian considers attainment to this New World Order as the only savior that humanity has in this dire condition. So turning towards this New World Order is the only savior that we have. And moving on, dear friends, the beloved guardian, he identifies this evolving Baha'i administrative order as the nucleus and pattern of the New World Order. And this is something very important, dear friends, to understand this administrative order, so important. Let me just give you a few examples of how, if we think we understand what this administrative order is, right? It's something, case in example. So let's scroll back. We'll scroll back all the way to the time of His Holiness Abdul Baha, okay? His Holiness Abdul Baha at that point in time, so His Holiness Baha'u'llah had revealed that there were, that there was two institutions, and these institutions in Kitab Aqdas were the institution of the Universal House of Justice that were going to be come into light. He also talked about that there was the institution of the spiritual assemblies, namely the local spiritual assembly. Okay, so this is in Kitab Aqdas. Will and Testament of Abdul Baha, so now at the time of Abdul Baha, Will and Testament of Abdul Baha, it comes out that there is now another institution, namely the National Spiritual Assemblies. And it's in the Will and Testament, it says now there is a National Spiritual Assembly. Another institution it also is shed light is the institution of the guardianship. Okay, and that is also revealed in the Will and Testament of Abdul Baha. So you see how it's organic and evolving. So then later, but even prior, in the time of Baha'u'llah, His Holiness Baha'u'llah had instituted another institution. And that institution was the Hands of the Cause. His Holiness Baha'u'llah appointed 4 Hands of the Cause. His Holiness Abdul Baha appointed 4 Hands of the Cause. And then after, after the passing of Abdul Baha, the beloved guardian posthumously, I think that's how you pronounce it, after their passing, appointed those individuals that had passed away all the way up to his, I believe it was 1951 off the top of my head. So there was those hands of the cause that had passed. Then he had 3 contingents of hands of the cause. And his last contingent was in his last world letter, 1957, October. And that was his 3rd contingent. So there was total, I believe, 27 hands of the cause before he passed, okay? And so those hands were his, per se, his generals. And so that was another institution. Now, in 1960, I think it was 1968, or I think off the top of my head, the Universal House of Justice realized that they cannot appoint or, future hands of the cause of God. So they created the institution of the Continental Board of Counselors. So you see, organically evolving Baha'i administrative order. So now the Continental Board of Counselors was instituted. And auxiliary board members shortly after, and then after that, the assistants to the auxiliary board, which is another institution. And so later on, more recently, regional Baha'i councils. This is another part of that is under the National Spiritual Assembly. And then even more recent developments is this institute process and how all the agencies of the cluster are flowing together. And this is when coming up later, when I'm presenting Dispensation of Baha'u'llah course, I will show you how this organic, ever-evolving administrative order is taking shape. For example, if you're a Baha'i and you have been in a shell for the last 26 years or so, and you suddenly wake up out of your coma, and you're like, yeah, I understand the Baha'i faith. And you're like, what is a cluster? What is an agency of a cluster? What is going on? Because you do not, the faith is organically evolving. This is the administrative order being unfurled by the supreme body, the Universal House of Justice. So this is very important to understand that it's evolving. That was a long explanation, but I wanted you to understand that, dear friends. Okay, moving on. The Baha'i community of North America will play a major role in this unfoldment of the New World Order towards its full glory. And you're going to see throughout this course, individuals as well as institutions playing incredible parts of how they have working towards building and winning goals for the cause. And so you're going to see not only individuals, but also institutions doing this. This is also an important key point. There are 2 simultaneous but independent and closely linked processes occurring in America towards this realization of the world order. So 2 processes, they're simultaneous, but independent and closely linked. Now, what are these 2 processes? The first process is associated with the mission of the North American Baha'i community, as revealed by the Abdul Baha in the Tablets of the Divine Plan. The second process is associated with the role of the American nation. Okay, so America has a destiny. America has a spiritual destiny. And this is written not only in America and the Most Great Peace. Okay, there was another one of the World Order letters. The spiritual destiny of America. So, but also, but this is very important key point. This role that America has, even though they may be unaware of the revelation of Baha'u'llah, they may not know about it, never heard of it, but they are still moving, and they still have a part to play in this establishment of this new world order. And this is something very interesting. And this is whether they think that they're doing something right or wrong, they still have that part to play. And because even if they do something per se wrong, it opens the eyes of the masses, and it may shed greater light on the solution, namely the faith, to that problem. So there's two twin processes moving simultaneously and independently and closely linked in this North American Baha'i community. So then in paragraph 14, the beloved guardian mentions this golden age. And this golden age is the stage of perfection and the realization of all the goals of the dispensation of Baha'u'llah. This seems so far beyond and out of reach, or a word that is coming from Greek, utopian. You know, it seems just like, what does that mean? But the beloved guardian makes it very concrete, very systematic. You have to achieve this, you have to achieve this, you have to work on this, you have to do this, you have to do that. So he outlines it so that it is not some airy-fairy idea that is impossible. In fact, His Holiness Baha'u'llah, His Holiness Abdullah, the beloved guardian says, this will come to pass. This will come to pass. So, paragraph 12, let's get into them, right? Here we go. Paragraph 12. The beloved guardian, Shoghi Effendi, he refers to this North American Baha'i community as the chief remaining citadel. So this is what I think when I think of a citadel, a fortress, right? And there he is again, Ehsan, talking about Lord of the Rings. I immediately think of Lord of the Rings, that fortress, and the armies of darkness surrounding it. And this is the example that I think about, a massive castle. And that this North American Baha'i community is the last castle, the last hope for this Baha'i world community, in the sense of the armies of darkness arraying against it. So, and it's upholding the standards of the cause of His Holiness Baha'u'llah in this, as I mentioned, in the chaos surrounding the world at that time. The beloved guardian suggests that it is fair, considering the works conducted by this community and the protection vouchsafed for it by Baha'u'llah, to suggest that the North American Baha'i community can be considered as the cradle and stronghold of the new world order. That is the promise and glory of the dispensation of Baha'u'llah. So I put here a visual of cradle. Now, the North American Baha'i community can be considered this cradle. And you see a cradle is kind of like a basket. And it does several things. What does a cradle do? Protects, gives warmth, protection, nurtures. And so that, in that sense, this is not only, and when you think about a citadel, same thing, same protection, it's strong. It's not only is protecting from the forces from outside, it's protecting the community from within, you know? So, and that's the citadel. And why does the beloved guardian here use cradle? We often think of the word cradle with a baby, right? A little baby, it's beautiful. And you go put it in its crib and it's crying and whatever, and then it feels happy and it goes to sleep. That's where the Baha'i community is at present, in this stage of the formative age. It's at the very, very, very beginning. Because as you know, this cause of Baha'u'llah will go for 500,000 years under this, the arc of the revelation. Okay, so if this is the case, we are only a few hundred years in. So we're at the very start. So if that's the case, yeah, this is why it's called the cradle. And this is why this is the very fledgling community. So as mentioned earlier, I mentioned the Blessed Bab, and I mentioned this aspect of the Persian Bayan. And so in the, this is quoted from God Passes By, the Beloved Guardian's technically only book. All the others are letters, but God Passes By was his only book that he wrote himself. And in the Persian Bayan, the Blessed Bab announces the order that is associated with the revelation of Baha'u'llah. And this is from God Passes By. He says, and exhorts, who fixeth his gaze upon the order of Baha'u'llah and rendereth thanks unto his Lord, for he will assuredly be made manifest. God hath indeed irrevocably ordained it in the Bayan. This is one of the many reasons why so many followers of the Blessed Bab turned towards His Holiness Baha'u'llah. The Bab pretty much spelled it out. He wrote the name Baha'u'llah. He said, turn towards Baha'u'llah. So it couldn't have been any more clear in the writings of the Blessed Bab to turn towards His Holiness Baha'u'llah. So here in the writing of the Blessed Bab, he says, you got to fix your gaze upon the order of Baha'u'llah and render him thanks. And this is when we talk about this order, and we're going to be talking about the world order of Baha'u'llah here. One of the most powerful quotes in Kitab al-Ahdas, and because we've been addressing all of these aspects in paragraphs 10 and 11, talking about the signs of convulsion around the world, right? Is this extract in Kitab al-Ahdas where Baha'u'llah makes a reference to this order as this new world order that we've been addressing in paragraphs 12 through 15. Is the world's equilibrium have been upset through this vibrating influence of this most great, this new world order, comes in Kitab al-Ahdas, new world order. Mankind's ordered life hath been revolutionized through the agency of this unique, this wondrous system, the like of which mortal eyes have never witnessed. The world's equilibrium hath been upset through the vibrating influence of this most great, this new world order. This is an incredible quote. And this extract, you could write a whole book about it and tie it to every revelation. And here's why I say that. Because at the coming of every manifestation of God, when they appear, this is exactly what happens. Mankind's order is suddenly upset through this vibrating influence that they inject into the world. The arts, the sciences, the spiritual consciousness of humanity is erased. Now, think about it. When His Holiness Baha'u'llah, the Blessed Bab, appeared, they were at best traveling by ship. And when I talk about ship, I'm talking about these wooden ships, not even metal ships or on any level. They were traveling at best by ship, and from one port to another port, it would take months, and it was miserable. Then, declaration about the Blessed Bab, 1844, May 23rd, suddenly, for the first time, a telegram appeared. First time, communication from one place to another place was almost instantaneous. Never happened before. And this is the world's equilibrium. And now you look today, how the speed of communication. I am looking at the people from all around the world, and I'm talking to people, and then after moments, it's now widely available to everyone. The amount of information that is available with a click of a button in a thing called the internet. This is only less than 100 years after these individuals, manifestations of God, appeared on this planet, when most of their lives they were in prisons. But what happened is that spiritual energy injected into the body of humanity, raising their consciousness, raising their faculties, raising their abilities, raising their talents. This is what happened. It shook humanity to its core, whether they were aware of it or not. This is the other thing, whether they were aware of it or not. But this is what happens when a manifestation of God appears. That energy gets injected. It's literally, as I think, it's if you have a garden, okay? You're a gardener, and the garden has been deteriorating over time, okay? And it's just been getting bad. Lots of weeds, lots of problems. I'm not a great gardener on any level, but what I'm saying is, if there's lots of weeds and problems, when that spiritual gardener comes, he looks at all the problems, right? He looks around, he says, we got to get rid of those problems and these problems and get rid of those weeds and that weeds. And he starts plucking. He says, this is not part of the book of God. So he starts removing things. This is not part of the book of God. And he starts taking those things out. And then he comes and brings his spiritual injection, his nutritious soil. So now he's bringing his new nutritious soil, and he puts it over that supposed almost dead garden, because that was coming from another dispensation. So he now puts his nutritious soil over that garden, and then he waters it with the word of God and gives it love. And that garden starts springing, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. The life starts going into another level. But what happens over time? There's that spiritual spring and the spiritual summer. And then after a time, humanity starts losing the focus on the divine Lord, that divine creator. It starts going into the fall and eventually the winter. This is what has happened in the past. And so what has happened is they have started going into that winter. And then the manifestation of God has to appear again and, per se, re-inject life into his garden. But this is in this day and order, in this day and age, His Holiness Baha'u'llah says this is a day that will not be followed by night. It's a very interesting quote. It's a day that will not be followed by night. What does that mean? It's because of the covenant of Baha'u'llah. The covenant of Baha'u'llah. Because in all past dispensations, there was no covenant from His Holiness Muhammad. There was no covenant, written covenant, even though he may have said it verbally, but it did not get passed, and there was fighting even after the moment, even before he passed away. And so there was immediate schism between the Shia and the Sunni. In the time of Christianity, there was no covenant. So immediately there was a schism in the church of Christianity. So all the past faiths, they did not have a covenant. But Baha'u'llah wrote a covenant, and it went to Abdul Baha. His Holiness Abdul Baha wrote a covenant, it went to His Holiness, the Beloved Guardian. It went to the Beloved Guardian. In the Will and Testament, it very clearly says that it was direct lineal descendant of the family, and if there was no direct lineal descendant, it would pass to the Universal House of Justice. And the hands of the cause of God said that at that point in time, they weren't ready for the House of Justice, so they had to build up to finish the World Crusade. So it was resting on their hands of the cause. So eventually, it was incredibly, lovingly handed over to the supreme body of the Universal House of Justice. So you see, covenant of Baha'u'llah, protected, unified. So important, and incredibly this aspect of love in this dispensation. So now we're going to get into, when I say I am a Baha'i, what am I working towards? My ultimate goal, right? So this is the world order that we're going to be exploring. The beloved guardian, Shoghi Effendi, he considers the realization of the new world order, whose promise is enshrined in the revelation of Baha'u'llah, whose fundamental principles have been enunciated in the writings of the center of his covenant. This is Abdul Baha, as the only savior of humanity in its dire condition. And dear friends, this is so another important point. We need to feel that the world is in a dire condition. If we don't feel it, what will motivate us to do anything, right? We have to feel the urgency, the problems, the chaos, the sufferings, the pain that is surrounding the world. So that gives us another level of, yeah, I got to do something about it. I got to work harder. As the beloved guardian says, day and night, you should be working to change this world from darkness into light. So we have to, per se, feel this that the world is in a dire condition. And it is towards this goal, the goal of a new world order, divine in origin, all-embracing in scope, equitable in principle, challenging in its features, that a harassed community must strive. So it's this goal that we're going to be working towards. And so what is this goal? And we're going to be exploring this in the upcoming slides. What is this world order of Baha'u'llah? So these are some extracts. Now we're going to be getting into unfoldment of world civilization. There's a section in it that now outlines all the elements of what is the world, the goal, this new world order of Baha'u'llah, as well as the focus to get to this golden age. Okay? The beloved guardian, he identifies this evolving Baha'i administrative order as the nucleus and pattern of the new world order. He affirms that with the expansion and consolidation of the administrative order, and as its component parts, its organic institutions begin to function with efficiency and vigor. And he asserts its claim and demonstrates its capacity to be regarded not only as the nucleus, but the very pattern of the new world order destined to embrace in the fullness of time the whole of mankind. I was thinking, I was sitting in a session, a cluster session, actually less than 20 minutes before this class started today. And it was one of these cluster meetings, and they called it a nuclei session, a nucleus of friends. And so you can see how in the institute process, the language is very similar to how the beloved guardian is talking about this nucleus and pattern of the world order of Baha'u'llah. And so I was sitting in a session, and they were reading that as friends, we are a nucleus of friends. And there I was contemplating on this word nucleus, right? That the beloved guardian is mentioned, that the Supreme Body is now using in its letters, talking about the friends, that you need to work and collaborate together. And I was thinking about a singular cell, an organism. And an organism, if we think about an animal cell, is composed of different elements, namely ribosomes, and it's got a mitochondria, and it's got a nucleus, and it's got all these different elements within that singular cell. For it to be a vibrant, healthy, functioning entity. And if any one of those elements is not there, or is overworking and replacing the function of another, or impinging on another, that cell will not be healthy and potentially will become cancerous because it's not functioning healthily. All of them have to be working coherently, working together. So in relation to that, are we as individuals at that cellular level, at that level of nucleus, using all the talents and faculties within our community in relation? Because every one of them is vital. Do you see what I'm saying? So one individual might be a ribosome. One individual might be a mitochondria. A mitochondria is at the powerhouse, can do so many things. A ribosome has another function. Another person might be a brilliant person, might be even have all the incredible ideas and be able to handle things. Another person might be, a doer, something. But everybody has a function and a role, and the more that you're inclusive of the talents, the faculties, the diversity within your area, that cell will have a greater sense of life because you are using all the faculties. This is on the nucleus level. This is what the beloved guardian is saying. We are evolving at that nuclear level. And we have to utilize all these talents and faculties in our community. And this will be explored in much more greater detail coming up when we get to the section, part 16 and 17, where the beloved guardian now gets into, this is right after he starts addressing the issues of race and racism, the Baha'i solution towards it. Then he addresses what's called the double crusade. And when he addresses the double crusade, he's now addressing the challenges of not only fighting the battles within the Baha'i community, but the external community. So how can we, as Baha'is, really not conquer ourselves? Because, dear friends, first I want to be very clear that this is not just a mere study of an awesome letter written in 1938 by the beloved guardian. What I want to be very clear is that this is a guidebook of action internally as you are studying it, but a guidebook to transform your communities. Because this is why it was written. It was written for the transformation of humanity to become the new race of man. That's why it was written. And why it was written was not just become a transformed humanity, but it was transformed humanity for the purpose of, for teaching to bring about this golden age of Baha'u'llah. So now we're getting into this nucleus and pattern of the New World Order, and then launching into all the stages that will bring about the Baha'i world commonwealth. Because when we say on the Baha'i, what are we working towards? We're going to find that down. According to the beloved guardian, Shoghi Effendi, the structure of this new world order is now stirring in the womb of these administrative institutions. It's just stirring. Imagine you're, a pregnant mama, and you just feel like a little vibration. I mean, I've had now 3 children, and every time I've ever put my hand on my wife's belly and I think I feel something, and I'm like, oh my God, I think I felt something. I'm never ever 100% sure I did or did not. But if I felt something, I'm like, I get a feeling of joy and happiness. And the reality is, this is where we are currently. It's just stirring that little bit of vibration in the womb. This is what is happening currently. We're not even outside of the womb. The institutions have not even reached that level of emergence in the sense of reaching that level yet. We're still so nascent. You see, we're just stirring in the womb, this structure of this new world order. Carrying on, dear friends, it says, this womb of the administrative order that Baha'u'llah himself has created, it will serve as a pattern and the nucleus of that world commonwealth, which is the inevitable destiny of the peoples and nations of the earth. So it's the inevitable destiny that eventually will come to be. Regarding the impact of this new world order, about the beloved guardian here, he asserts that it will achieve no less, this is such an incredible and powerful quote, no less than the complete unification of the entire human race. That is so awesome. The complete unification of the entire human race. This unification should conform to such principles as would directly harmonize with the spirit that animates and the laws that govern the operation of the institutions that already constitute the structural basis of the administrative order of his faith. So there we are. This is what we're working towards, complete unification of the entire human race. But how is this, possible? So we're going to go through it now, okay? So this is I believe this is my last quote coming from Promised Days Come, and then we're going to start going through all of these aspects, talking about the world commonwealth. Okay, so this is my last extract coming from Promised Days Come. Dear Jeremiah, are you with us? Could you read this one for us?
Yes.
Go for it.
The emergence of the New World Order and its consummation will, by its very nature, be a gradual process and must, as Baha'u'llah himself anticipated, lead at first to the establishment of the lesser peace, which the nations of the earth, as yet unconscious of his revelation, and yet unwittingly enforcing the general principles which he has enunciated, will themselves establish. This momentous and historic step, involving the reconstruction of mankind as the result of the universal recognition of its oneness and wholeness, will bring in its wake the spiritualization of the masses, consequent to the recognition of the character and the acknowledgement of the claims of the faith of Baha'u'llah, the essential condition to that ultimate fusion of all races, creeds, classes, and nations, which must signalize the emergence of his new world order.
Thank you, dear Jeremiah. Very well read. So in this extract from Promised Days Come, another incredible letter. This was 1946, I believe. This letter is now outlining in this, saying that this world order that the beloved guardian is addressing, this new world order is gradual. It's not going to immediately happen. It's going to go, move in stages. And the first stage that he's outlining, he says, first is to the establishment of the lesser peace, right here, which the nations of the earth, as yet unconscious of his revelation, they're not even conscious of it, totally unaware, but they will unwittingly enforcing its principles, which he has enunciated. So even unconsciously, they're going to move in that direction. If you recall in that last paragraph, it was here. Yeah, I was pointing with my finger. Sorry, you couldn't see that. It says the second process is associated, this one. They're not even conscious of it, unaware of the revelation of Baha'u'llah. This is talking about the North American Bahá'í community. So in this paragraph, I was pointing out that even though they may be unconscious, not unaware, but they're still moving in that direction. And in this one, sorry, I'm moving like this. They are also unaware, but the countries of the world will move towards this establishment of this lesser peace. This is what the beloved guardians say. And this will be a launching pad. This will move, this momentous and historic step involving what? The reconstruction of mankind. This will be a launching pad, a massive spiritualization of the world. And the result will be universal recognition of its oneness, and the beloved guardian says, and its wholeness. And through this, it will bring in its wake the spiritualization of the masses. So through that process of this lesser peace, it will create this process for spiritualization of the masses, which will eventually, consequently, will be recognition of the character as well as the claims of the faith of Baha'u'llah. So this is all going to be unfolding, and happening. This is in Promised Days Come. So moving on, dear friends, as we were addressing in paragraph 14, this golden age of the New World Order of Baha'u'llah, this Baha'i world commonwealth that every single Baha'i is striving towards to bring about. We also want to know what this is about. So this is in one of his messages, the beloved guardian. This is in Unfoldment of World Civilization. This is his last world order letter. The beloved guardian, he briefly is articulating the general character, the implications and features of this world commonwealth, representing the new world order. So the unity of the human race as envisaged by Baha'u'llah implies the establishment of a world commonwealth in which. So I'm going to call on the dear friends. So all you have to do is read this part, okay? Whichever is in the bullets, because the top part, it will be repetitious, because this will be the same thing. All of these are directly addressing the qualities and implication, the character and features of this world commonwealth. So the first one is, the features of the world commonwealth are all nations, races, creeds, and classes are closely and permanently united, and in which the autonomy of its state members and the personal freedom and initiative of the individuals that compose them are definitely and completely safeguarded. So all nations, all races, creeds, and classes closely and permanently united, and which the autonomy of its state members and the personal freedom and initiative of the individuals that compose them are definitely and completely safeguarded. Zurish John, please go ahead.
Sorry about that. The unity of the human race, as envisaged by Baha'u'llah. Did you already read this?
No, just keep going. You're good.
Oh, okay. Implies the establishment of a world commonwealth, in which this commonwealth must, as far as we can visualize it, consist of a world legislature, whose members will, as the trustees of the whole of mankind, ultimately control the entire resources of all the component nations, and will enact such laws as shall be required to regulate the life, satisfy the needs, and adjust the relationships of all races and peoples. A world executive, backed by an international force, will carry out the decisions arrived at, and apply the laws enacted by the world legislature, and will safeguard the organic unity of the whole commonwealth.
Excellently read, dear Suresh. So a commonwealth, as far as we can visualize it, consists of a world legislature. So a body of countries and individuals whose members will, as the trustees of the whole of humanity, they will ultimately control the entire resources of all the countries. And they will enact such laws as shall be required to regulate the life, satisfy the needs, and adjust the relationships of all the races and peoples. A world legislature that will handle the resources of all the countries. A world executive backed by an international force. So this is also an international force. So this is kind of a police keeping body. International force will carry out the decisions arrived at and apply the laws enacted by this world legislature, and will safeguard the organic unity of the whole commonwealth. A world tribunal will adjudicate. Oh, dear Jeannie, you have a hand, please.
Yeah, I have a question. Is this is this the world order of Baha'u'llah, or is this the lesser peace that he's talking about? That's one question. The other question is, where is this from? Where can this be found?
This is an unfoldment of world civilization. It's one of the world order letters. It's the last one. Okay. This was written in 1936. Okay. And these are, as to your question of the lesser peace is a much earlier stage than all of these. Okay. These are the stages working up towards the golden age of Baha'u'llah. So this is, it's there in that letter, Unfoldment of World Civilization.
Does he ever talk about what the lesser peace will look like?
We talked about it here in Promised Day Has Come. The lesser peace is mentioned here. It is when the nations of the earth, as yet unconscious of his revelation, and yet unwittingly enforcing the general principles which he has enunciated. So it's when the nations of the earth, they come together and establish peace in the sense of unity and work themselves, even though they're unconscious of it. It was very similar to, in the sense of an early stage was like League of Nations. And they were unwittingly and moved towards, and it's mentioned also in Advent of Divine Justice, and mentions the unappreciated president, Woodrow Wilson, for moving in that direction and being at the nascent stages of the coming about of the lesser peace. So the world, and also Mr. Ali Nakhjavani has written an incredible paper on the lesser peace. So that's online. You can look that up, dear friends. It's on the lesser peace and the most great peace. And it goes into much greater detail than I could afford in a few minutes on this session with you. But yeah, there are several places that lesser peace is talked about in much greater detail. But our dear Mr. Nakhjavani has really gone into detail on that.
Thank you.
Of course. So as mentioned, so these are just some of the components mentioned. Now there's so many other elements. This is blows you away on what this world, Baha'i World Commonwealth is. Here are just some more aspects. A world tribunal will adjudicate and deliver its compulsory and final verdict in all and any disputes that may arise between the various elements constituting this universal system. So we have something that we call is the World Court, The Hague, but this would be on a much larger level. The World Court is in The Hague is for international crimes. But this is on a much grander and greater level is this World Tribunal. This will be for all countries of the world, and it would adjudicate and deliver its compulsory and final verdict on all various elements that, and so then another incredible one of these is a mechanism of world intercommunication. I think this is the only one that's been achieved so far. A mechanism of world intercommunication will be devised, embracing the whole planet, freed from national hindrances and restrictions, and functioning with marvelous swiftness and perfect regularity. It hasn't been fully achieved because there's many countries in the world that have hindrances and restrictions in the flow of communication. And we know in the cradle of our faith, namely in Iran, there's major restrictions of the flow of information. And there's other countries that we once mentioned, but they also restrict the flow of communication. And so this is where the beloved guardian is saying that this world order of Baha'u'llah is freed from national hindrances and restrictions. Another amazing qualities of this golden age of Baha'u'llah, this what we're working towards, this Baha'i World Commonwealth, is a world metropolis. It will act as the nerve center of a world civilization, the focus towards which the unifying forces of life will converge and from which its energizing influences will radiate. When I think of this world metropolis, I think because as humanity, we constantly are competing against each other, constantly, whether it's in business, whether it's in all aspects of life, we're always in a state of competition. But if we use and bend our energies towards cooperation, working towards a common goal of the betterment of humanity, working towards this ever-advancing civilization, using the resources of humanity. Think about it, dear friends, how much money is wasted on military uses, and fighting and killing each other on this small little blue dot in the cosmos. And using that resources, we could have eradicated every disease on this planet 10 million times over, you know? Dear Alice, you have a hand. Go for it. Don't forget to unmute yourself, dear Alice. You have a hand.
Okay. I hear all of this coming together. It all sounds great. And it's wonderful to have this written out for us to see. But I think we are forgetting the primary part of this happening is ourselves, the human race. We're going to have to undo some things in our own world, in our own life, in order for this peace to come.
That's right.
And when I say that, we always talk about racism. We talk about how we just stay apart. Society has set that up so we can stay apart. There's actually books been written that is taught to American whites how to ignore blacks, how to just pretend we are not there, and we carry this stuff unknown. So my thing is, we're going to have to pray for the things that we are doing that unseen and unknown. We're going to have to eradicate every idea, every thought that we have had over these 400 years of blacks being enslaved. All of this stuff going to have to be redone through the word of God. We're going to have to ask the Holy Spirit to change us. We can't do it ourselves. This is the honest way I can see this happening. Is we're going to have to ask for forgiveness. Black, white, green, gray, I don't care who you is. It's written. We must ask for forgiveness. We must eradicate our own heart, our own stone heart, because we have one against human. Not just black and white. I said human, the humanity, the human beings of this society. You're going to have to go within yourself. And when we go within ourselves and bring this world together, because that is the only way it's going to be done. Shoghi Effendi said in a prayer, we was pathetic because we learned how to move away from God, and the honest person is going to help us. So we must ask God to help me search my heart, turn the light from heaven on my soul, find everything that shouldn't be. Take it out, dear Lord, and straighten me, because I want to be saved. I want to be whole. I want to do this work, and I can't do it with all this mess I've had in me for years. We got to be cleaned out. And the reason I came to this decision, I'm in the process of moving. And I am so sorry. I have so much stuff that I got to go through. It's my own stuff, and I don't want to. And it made me look at my life. This is what we got in our life, and we don't want to look at it.
That's right.
And the thing I'm saying, every time you read it, you talk about what the world does. Your world is, I'm looking at my world. You have to accumulate one-on-one relationships. I just had the experience last night in the hospital. I could have been dead, gone, and nobody got the message. But I thank God I accumulate real love, relationship in this little town. And they are not black people. They're a white family that loves me. And the doctor come in, he said, your children love you. He could see the love last night. If I tell you last night I was near death and I'm up this morning, this is what love and prayer and bringing the world together. When I leave Alabama, I'll be made families with love, not whiteism, not racism. I'm talking about pure love. And that's what we need to experience, pure love of one another. And I'm going to say this today. If you don't have any Black friends, work out some relationships. Stop wanting to know what a person work, how much money they got. Work out how the person feels. Work out honesty with each other. Talk about the honest feeling that you give me. If you just go look in a mall, a Black person can sit in a mall, and I bet you he won't have 5 white people to say hello to him, because they'll look over him and be walking right towards them. That's what you are taught, and you don't realize you're being taught that. That is to ignore us, make us feel worse. That's what I'm teaching my little white friends. Okay, let's go do this experiment today. They shocked. They shocked that we got different cemeteries. Black cemetery, white cemetery, and then where the white and Black has to be buried in, they got a fence between them. That's and right. The girl said, what do you think they're going to do at night? Get up and walk and party together? They were shocked. Young people don't know all of this stuff. Yeah. So it's a lot to sit here. I'm listening to this, sounds good to me, but then for my world, I'm experiencing. And Baha'is need to wake up. You come to the Baha'i faith to get well. You have not arrived. And that's my conclusion of the faith today. We all are sick. It's a hospital. The prescription has been written, but we don't want to take the medicine. And that means being uncomfortable, undoing all the wrong teaching that we has been taught. I come to this faith hurt, lots of pain, losing my child, asking God to give me more of him. And that's how my intention in this faith, to want more of the righteousness of God, more of justice as a gift. Because that's what I was looking for when I lost my child, was murder. I wanted justice. But I come to find out justice is a gift for the seen and the unseen. Yeah. I thank you for this time. I didn't even intend to talk this much, but.
Beautifully said, dear Alice. Beautiful, beautiful. Every one of your words. I mean, you actually synopsized the whole book, truthfully. You really synopsized, you stressed the urgency of the time. You synopsized the point that you have to take it on a personal level. And that is really, at this, just a few paragraphs that we're summarizing in this section, it's on a world's level. The beloved guardian is, because in paragraphs 10 and 11, he was addressing the crises on a world level. And then in this paragraph, he is addressing it as the North American Baha'i community is the last cradle for a tottering civilization. So he's looking at it on the grand scale. But in the upcoming paragraphs, he zooms in and says, you individually have to transform your life. And so you jumped ahead, as they said, and now you're saying, hey, you got to take this seriously. This is, you have to look at it internally yourself. And then the biggest and the most vital, challenging issue facing the North American Baha'i community we're going to come up and address is racism, racial prejudice. You addressed that, and you said that if we do not even have an African-American friend, how can we hope to have that level of empathy and understanding, connecting to another, if we do not even try to reach out of our own comfort zone? We have to work proactively, be conscious of it, and try to reach out, form deep and veritable friendships, free of patronizing attitude. This is the words of the beloved guardian. Free of a patronizing attitude, and have that level of true love, working into that sense of a nuclear model, working in your communities, and then start working to build that level of love ever around you, because all of this is wonderful words, as dear Ella said, wonderful words, world language, world script, then talking about a world society, science and religion working together. This next one, a press that is free of all mischievous manipulation, vested interests, private or public. This last one, economic resources of the whole world, all the raw materials organized, incredible principles, incredible concepts the beloved guardian is talking about to bring about this world civilization. But it's all, as they say, beautiful words, but if it's not realized on the personal level, as dear Alice said, it is just talk. And we got to be the walk. We have to do the action, as dear Alice said. Okay, so thank you very much, dear Alice. As you said, you've jumped ahead. You summarized most of Advent of Divine Justice in your what you said, in the sense of taking it on a very personal level, taking it on the action component, taking it on the sense of this working towards this elimination of all forms of racial prejudice. And so this is something that the beloved guardian, as we're going to march through this, we're going to see what the beloved guardian is really going to hit home on these different points. Thank you, dear Alice. So,
thank you.
Oh, excellent. I'm ever proud.
I didn't know I was going to say all of those things, but I try to let the Holy Spirit lead me.
No, excellent points.
And I always want you guys to hear my heart, not my head.
And that's how we should communicate, ideally. You know, the beloved guardian, he says, whenever you are going to give a talk, this is in, I will share this with our dear John, so he can also share this and put this online. But it is also in Abdul Baha in Egypt. And it says that before you ever give a talk or open your mouth, you first turn to His Holiness Baha'u'llah and open your heart. So then you talk from the heart, just as you mentioned, dear Alice, so that you talk with the inspiration. You talk, your mouth is inspired. So it's not that you may have accumulated all the knowledges of this or that, because that may not be apt or appropriate for that point in time. But the inspiration coming from the confirmations, that may be appropriate. So it's best to always, and also when we talk from the heart, it also conveys that level of, at times, the level of urgency that may not be here, but we feel it. It comes from the heart. And that level of love, that level of connection to what we're talking about comes across. So I appreciate that always. Thank you so much. So some other major points that addressed in this World Commonwealth. And dear John, how are we doing with time before we're doing good?
Doing great.
Okay.
I think that it's 4:24. We've been in for about an hour and a half.
Okay.
It's good that we don't do way too many questions so we can get through it.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Everyone, very great.
Thank you.
So then there was other concepts such as national rivalries, hatreds, intrigues. They will cease. And so importantly, racial animosity and prejudice, they will be replaced by racial amity, understanding, and cooperation. And so this is all about the transformation of the heart. Individuals working organically, unitedly, first on themselves, then on their families, then on their communities. And so this is, as mentioned earlier, this is a process that I mentioned that the beloved guardian says here. This is a gradual process. So we have to work on it. And this is what every Baha'i should be working on towards making these possible. First, working on themselves. Am I free of prejudice? Am I free of working towards the eradication of racial prejudice within themselves? Working towards the eradication of any forms of hatreds or anything within themselves, and then working on it in their family structures, and then working on it in their community structures, and making sure everyone is included and loving, and creating a very loving and vibrant and healthy community life. And then once that Baha'i model is strong, vibrant, inclusive, you start welcoming more and more people into this organic, vibrant community life. And so this is the structure that the beloved guardian is talking about. The causes of religious strife will be permanently removed. Economic barriers, restrictions will be completely abolished. And the inordinate distinction between classes will be obliterated. Now think about this, dear friends. Of course, 400 years of slavery in this country, then compounded with another 50, 60 years of the Dred Scott decision in this country with segregation, and then another 10, 20 years of suffering post civil rights, that there's still incarcerations with decisions, and still mass killings in this country, all because of incredible amount of racial hate that is being literally grown in this country from the very day it came into being. But sure, this is just one of a myriad of problems in this world. From the mass genocides of the indigenous populations that came into this country, was about 125 million indigenous peoples that were massacred in this country. Then can go to any country in the world. There have been killings on many different levels. You cannot pick any country and say there hasn't been a problem. They have all been atrocities. They have all had enslavements. They have all had crises one after another. India, for example, hundreds and hundreds of years of caste system so brutal that hundreds of millions of people are considered untouchable, that they cannot even move up and out of a system. So they have to, at best, be serving overlords and the best jobs that they can get is to, clean the feces off the street, because that is all they can afford to do in their caste system of being an untouchable, because they're called spiritually unclean. You cannot even touch them. Imagine that, hundreds of millions of people. So here the beloved guardian is saying, in the world order of Baha'u'llah, these classes will be obliterated when the spiritual consciousness of humanity is raised and we see each other as one family, one humanity, and one people. That my brother and my sister in India, they should not suffer a fate where they have to live on the streets in absolute poverty and, fend for themselves. Or my brother and sister, anywhere in the world, living in a war-torn country or in the United States, suffering due to hatreds by a white colonialism type of country where they're suffering under a racist type of doctrine. Anywhere, my brothers and sisters are everywhere, and we should see them as that. So we see constant praising of individuals that have accumulated vast amounts of wealth, and we idolize them in this materialistic culture of the United States and the globalized type of world that we live that follows the rank and file of the United States. So these individuals that have amassed great amounts of wealth, and I don't even have to name them, you all know their names, but this vast amount of wealth that they have accumulated will also disappear. His Holiness Baha'u'llah and Abdul Baha have written about this, that this type of mass accumulation of wealth is also not in line and not in order of how the world order of Baha'u'llah will be. because this is not equitable. Think about it, where a few individuals have the same amount of wealth as hundreds of millions or even billions of people. And this is, and then there's so many of them that do not have access to clean water, to access to food, yet a few individuals have billions and billions of dollars. This is not right. So, as mentioned, this is an incredible extract. This is also from The Beloved Guardian. All of these you can find in Unfoldment of World Civilization. And I wanted to highlight on these because The Beloved Guardian in Advent of Divine Justice mentions the golden age of the cause of Baha'u'llah. So this is all talking about the realization of that. And as dear Alice mentioned, these are very wonderful concepts, but all of this, it needs to be brought about by inner transformation, the realization of you taking this faith personally and taking it on through your own transformation. So these are at the world level and things that will come to be, but you have to take it on personally. Say, this is my faith, I'm going to change it and make these things happen. That's the reality. Another one of the extracts, the Beloved Guardian says, is the enormous energy that is dissipated, wasted on war. Just this country of our great United States of America, trillions of dollars is on war alone. 1% of that, if used on education, just 1%, we would be able to educate the whole world. The whole world. 1% of that, another 1%, we'd be able to feed the whole world, provide clean water to the whole world. Another 1% of that budget on war, we'd be able to provide medical aid to the whole world. Do you see the vast amount that is wasted on war, killing each other? It is so, and these numbers that I'm throwing out, you can actually go to the 1986 document, Promise of World Peace, that the Universal House of Justice put out. And you can see the numbers right there. The numbers haven't changed a whole lot, but the Universal House of Justice in that great pivotal document, Promise of World Peace, hasn't changed a lot. That they actually studied what it took to feed the whole humanity, to provide medicine for the whole of humanity, to do all the things, and we're looking at the whole budget of the whole planet, and because they said, okay, the allocation of resources, if we did this, we would become ever closer to bringing about this Baha'i world Commonwealth on the global level. There's so much wasted resources. And now think about this one. If we utilize the brains and the resources, a small percentage out of this war budget on extermination of disease, we wouldn't be hiding in our houses constantly from this corona nightmare, scared for our children's lives in schools. You know, now the corona is taking the lives of so many children because it has adapted, it's mutated. The hospitals are filled with children now. If we used our resources properly, as the Beloved Guardian say, and not on wars, but on the eradication of diseases, scientific research, raising standard of physical health, so that, you know, the populations are not supposed to die at 50 or 60 years old in some countries, to extend our lifespan, but not just be so-called healthy in the 70s or 80s, but well, vibrant, not living in pain, and not taking 50 or drugs, you know, when you're getting into your 40s and 50s and 60s, and just feeling well, living well. This can all be achieved. And then on top of it, the sharpening of the mind. How many times and places have you heard that we only use 10% of our brain? I probably use only 4%. But the point is that the brain is a tool. How much are we actually utilizing it, studying, refining? This is all part of the possibilities of if we cooperate as a species, not compete, and not kill each other. So these are just some, the last extract. The last extract says, a world federal system ruling the whole earth and exercising unchallengeable authority over its unimaginably vast resources, blending and embodying the ideals of both the East and the West, liberated from the curse of war and its miseries, and bent on the exploitation of all the available sources of energy on the surface of the planet, a system in which force is made the servant of justice, whose life is sustained by its universal recognition of one God and by its allegiance to one common revelation. Such is the goal towards which humanity, impelled by the unifying forces of life, is moving. This little planet, this blue dot in the cosmos, is the only place that we know where life is sustainable, that we know about. Yet we're constantly working to make our lives difficult. We put up so many barriers, hatreds, wars, conflicts. We're at a rate never before seen, damaging our climate. 50 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere every year. 50 billion metric tons. And all these new developments of electric cars to you name it. You think these things are actually doing anything? No, I actually work in oil and gas, and I know they're not even doing anything. They're actually compounding the problem. Because where do you think all this electricity is coming from? The electricity is coming from oil and gas. That's where the electric grid is coming from. So you think, oh, I'm going to use an electric vehicle. But where is the electricity coming from? The electricity is coming from carbon-based products, namely oil and gas. So you're literally supporting the oil and gas industry, whether it's directly or indirectly. So it's a complete fallacy in the sense of, are you being carbon neutral? So the reality is, we have a long, long way to move out of working towards a clean future. There is solutions, very easy solutions that can be accomplished. And we've known about them. One of them is a solution that every single person on the planet, because the solution for, I'll share this last anecdote and then we can even close. The solution for electric vehicles is not a good one. And I share this because it requires a massive shift of all cars. All cars have to go electric. Then there has to be stations everywhere that has to support those electric cars. So it's not a great solution. It's quite complex. But there is another solution, and that one is it actually goes into the cars itself, and the byproduct is nitrogen and hydrogen, and it's ammonia. Ammonia it's a smelly product, but it can be put into all charging stations. You can literally put it right into your car. But the byproduct is nitrogen and hydrogen, completely clean byproducts. This becomes water vapor. So yeah, we know about solutions. I work in oil and gas. I know these things. The world knows about these things. I'm not the only one that knows these things. But what it does is it requires not only the knowledge, but it requires the action. So the world has to come together and say, yeah, this is the solution. Every car on this planet could suddenly just put ammonia instead of gasoline in their car, and instead of CO2 and fumes and all the problems going up into the atmosphere and building up a nice global warming effect and creating our monster hurricanes, they could just put ammonia in your car, and the byproduct is water vapor, completely clean. It is absolutely clean. Nitrogen and hydrogen is the byproduct. So yeah, there is, yeah, Miss Jeannie, you have a hand, please.
Would that require a whole new set of cars? Like
No, it does not. And that's the beautiful thing. The catalytic converter of a car, you don't have to do anything. It works completely with ammonia. And that's the awesome thing. You don't even have to, you can have your, beat up 1989 Buick, and put, straight up ammonia in it and it will work. And the byproduct is water vapor. That's the beautiful thing about this. And we've known about it in the industry. Okay, the reality is now there's certain countries that are moving towards it. United Arab Emirates is just sent off its first massive super tanker to Japan because they realized that the world is now moving towards this aspect of raised consciousness of environmentalism. And ammonia is the true solution towards this, because the changing all cars to electric, you think, California is in the spearhead. It is, they haven't even touched it. I mean, if you think about how many cars there are in this country and how many cars globally, they haven't even touched they haven't even moved the needle on this monstrous problem. If you could just go drive down any road, I'm not talking about California, any road in the United States, do you see any electric charging stations? The answer is no, because it is a huge, huge thing to monstrously overturn the grid so that it will meet the needs of electric car vehicles. And do you honestly trust an electric car where it only has 200 miles for charging, and then, and you have a bunch of passengers in there, and then it takes more electricity to take that passengers, and then you get stuck in the boonies and where are you going to find a charging station? So that's the current problem with many people. And I live in Texas where 200 miles is nothing, so I would be really out of luck in having an electric car. So the reality is to change over to something else requires a bigger shift. And the solution is already there. It's that, will humanity embrace it? Will humanity come together? That's the reality, dear Jean, is that I'm absolutely sure these brilliant minds in these World Economic Councils in energy, which I attend because I work in the energy sector, is that they gravitate towards profit, and now they gravitate towards the reality of what the world is leaning to. If the world is leaning towards environmentalism and care, they want to be the first ones there to get that profit. So if they can corner the ammonia industry, think about it. The whole industry of ammonia will be theirs. So every person that puts ammonia in their car will be just like a person putting, gasoline in their car. So they want to have that. And then they will get the credit. We're being environmentally conscious. You see? So now the world is shifting to environmental. They will be the first ones doing it, but it will move in stages. As I said, it will be gradual. So I think I have a few more slides. This one is from the Beloved Guardian. And then we're just at that point of wrapping up. The unity of the human race, as envisaged by His Holiness Baha'u'llah. It implies the establishment of a world commonwealth. We've talked about all these different elements of what this world commonwealth is, in which all the nations, the races, the creeds, the classes are closely and permanently united, and in which the autonomy of its state members and the personal freedom and initiative of the individuals that comprise them are definitely and completely safeguarded. So as dear Alice said, if all the nations and the races and the creeds and the classes are closely and permanently united, it should also be at the individual and family and community level. So is your community permanently united? Are you united as a community of whatever community you live in? Working, striving towards, the elimination of all these prejudices we've talked about. Working and fostering love in your families and in your communities. And here the beloved guardian is saying the unification of the whole of mankind is the hallmark of the stage which human society is now approaching. The unity of the family, of the tribe, of the city-state and nation have been successively attempted and fully established. World unity is the goal towards which a harassed humanity is striving. In paragraph 13, the beloved guardian is quoting from the tablets of the divine plan. And this is what he says. In this assertion, Abdu'l-Baha is describing the continent of America. So this is where, in paragraph 13, the beloved guardian is quoting Abdu'l-Baha. This is what he says, Abdu'l-Baha says about America. He says, the splendors of the light of God will be revealed here. The splendors of the light of God. The mysteries of his faith shall be known. Upright people will abide in it. So upright people will abide in America. And those who are free will gather together. I love this line, splendors of the light of God will be revealed. Each one of you, dear friends, should be a ray of light, should be a fountain of light. This is what it means to be a Baha'i, to be a fountain of light. And this splendors of light of God will be revealed. And upright people will abide in the North American Baha'i community. And in paragraph 14, the beloved guardian explains the meaning and implications of those statements. So paragraph 13 was from Abdu'l-Baha. Then paragraph 14, the beloved guardian is explaining, okay, what those extracts from Abdu'l-Baha. In paragraph 14, the beloved guardian explains the meaning and implications quoted in paragraph 13. He says the light that we talked about, the light here, the splendors of the light of God will be revealed. The light is the glory of the golden age of the faith of Baha'u'llah. The mysteries of his faith shall be known. What is that? Mysteries of his faith shall be known. The beloved guardian explains, the mysteries are the characteristics of this new world order, evolving within the matrix. That's an X, you just can't see the line. The matrix of the Baha'i administration. Oh. And upright people will abide in it. The righteousness will be established by this new world order, and freedom will be achieved in the fullness of time through this proclamation of the sovereignty of Baha'u'llah. So here, the beloved guardian is divinely interpreting the words of Abdu'l-Baha in Tablets of Divine Plan, quoted in paragraph 13. And then finally, dear friends, we're getting into paragraph 15, the last paragraph that we had assigned for this part. The beloved guardian identifies the North American community as the spiritual descendants of the dawnbreakers, of the cause in Persia, who proclaimed the birth of the revelations of the Bab and Baha'u'llah. This is an incredible and honorific title that every one of you should strive, every night, when I put my little kids to sleep, they always sing, strive, that your actions, that your day by day may be beautiful prayers, right? And this is the reality. that every one of us must strive. It's not an immediate thing, as dear Alice says, that when we are, whether we signed a declaration card or we just happen to be born into the Baha'i community, that I'm a Baha'i. This is the starting point of a life of sacrifice, a life of work, a life of, sacrifice and service that we got to start. And a starting point is our inner life. This is where we have to start. First and foremost, we have to teach ourselves. And if we do not teach ourselves, it is through that teaching that we need to eradicate all the prejudices that have seeped in, have come into our life. Because in reality, our parents are not our only teacher. Society is also teaching us whatever we see, whatever we get associated with. And even though we may think we love our parents are so wonderful and so perfect in every way, but they also have had prejudices. And unbeknownst to us, those prejudices have seeped into us too. And our society, our schools, our friends, our colleagues, the media, whatever, they have all seeped into us. And we have to be on guard, purify our character. Here, purify ourselves. The seat of his revelation, thy heart is my home, cleanse it from my manifestation. So we have to cleanse it. And then once this cleansing portion has done, because literally 2/3 of the Advent of Divine Justice is about cleansing thy heart. Once that is accomplished, then you can open your mouth and teach this great cause. Because how can you open your mouth and teach the cause if you're a sullied individual and in reality your heart is impure, the seat of his revelation is impure, namely your heart. You have to work on yourself so that every day is bring thyself to account. You have to work on yourself. 1947, dear friends, Citadel of Faith was written by Shoghi Effendi. It shed some light on the processes associated with America that would eventually lead to this realization of the New World Order. And in this connection, he identifies these two simultaneous but independent and closely linked processes. Yeah. So as mentioned earlier, the first process is associated with the mission of the North American Baha'i community, Tablets of the Divine Plan. And the other one is, the second one is, I'm jumping, I apologize, because we've mentioned these and I don't want to keep on them. The second process is associated with the role that the American nation, though unaware of the revelation of Baha'u'llah, plays in the establishment of the New World Order. And this process commenced when the American nation turned its attention to world affairs with the outbreak of World War I. So this is when it commenced. This is a very important thing. This is when this process started happening, the second process. It was when Woodrow Wilson gave his speech to United States Congress on 8th January 1918, outlining a statement of principles for peace known as his 14 points to guide the peace negotiations at the end of World War I. Woodrow Wilson is mentioned in Advent of Divine Justice, not in name, but in deed. And he's also mentioned as the unappreciated president. And I believe it's in paragraph 123 or so. There's 124 paragraphs, so it's really close to the end. It's like 122 or 123. He's mentioned as the unappreciated president. So because of his importance in bringing about the second process, namely that this is moving the world towards this lesser peace, he's so significant. In order to prevent another world war, an American-British statesman established this League of Nations. However, Woodrow Wilson did not manage to convince Americans to join this League of Nations, although the United States continued to play an economically crucial role in advancing peace in Europe during the 1920s. Now, I just want to make a very quick point on Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson was an extreme racist himself. He was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. He was a segregationist. He was not a good figure. In fact, during this recent I would say, wave of, I'm going to use the term wave because it was almost a wave of raised consciousness that happened with this killing of this African-American brother. When that happened, they took down many statues. And one of the statues they took down was the statue of Woodrow Wilson. And the reason is, as mentioned, he was a racist. He was an individual that wanted to uphold white supremacy and white power. So you can research all of this, and I have done research on all of these different subjects. And we'll be studying other presidents too, and namely Abraham Lincoln we'll be looking into, because he was the individual that brought about the Emancipation Proclamation. But was he also racist? We'll explore that also. And the answer to that question is yes, he was. And so, so we're going to explore all of these and profile different individuals. The United States became more deeply involved in the affairs of the world with the outbreak of World War II. On the 14th of August, 1941, President FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill issued a joint policy statement known as the Atlantic Charter for a Post-War World that was confirmed later by all the allies involved in World War II. So you can see now, for the first time, the United States is taking on a world stage, taking on its mantle, it's taking on its charter as being a world leader. This Atlantic Charter eventually was incorporated by reference into the Declaration of the United Nations on the 1st of January, 1942, that eventually was signed by 26 countries. And this became the basis of the modern United Nations. And the final Charter of the United Nations was discussed and accepted at the United Nations Conference on International Organization and convened in San Francisco. This is so amazing. So check this out. So this United Nations Conference on International Organization, it was convened San Francisco, 25th April 1945. And the San Francisco conference was attended by 50 countries from all parts of the world. The United Nations Charter was unanimously signed on the 26th of June and promulgated on the 24th of October, 1945. So this charter of the coming together of virtually the world, the 26 major countries of the world signing this pivotal document, bringing of the United Nations, was signed in San Francisco, 25th April, 1945. This was the cornerstone that became the permanent seat of the United Nations that is now in New York City, 1949. So this is Abdul Baha. We all know Abdul Baha. Abdul Baha, during his journeys in the United States, Abdul Baha visited Sacramento, the capital of California, about 120 kilometers northeast of San Francisco. And on 26th of October, 1912, he gave a talk on international peace at the Assembly Hall of Hotel Sacramento. And you can find this talk in promulgation of universal peace. In that talk, he foretold that San Francisco conference would be the site that we talked about in 1945. So this is what he says. Inasmuch as the Californians seem peace-loving and possessed of great worthiness and capacity, I hope that advocates of peace may daily increase among them until the whole population shall stand for that beneficent outcome. May the men of affairs in this democracy uphold the standard of international conciliation. Then may altruistic aims and thoughts radiate from this center toward all other regions of the earth. And may the glory of this accomplishment forever halo the history of this country. Now pay attention to this. He says, may the first flag of international peace be upraised in this state. Where was the first place that the San Francisco, 25th April 1945, UN was formed in this state. Abdu'l-Baha was praying for it. So may the first flag of international peace be upraised in this state. May the first illumination of reality shine gloriously upon this soil. May this center and capital become distinguished in all degrees of accomplishment for the virtues of humanity, and the possibilities of human advancement are boundless. So here Abdu'l-Baha visiting California, praying for world peace and praying that this state will be the first state to uphold world peace, the coming together of countries, the first flag of international peace be upraised here. And lo and behold, 25th April 1945, the United Nations came together. And then later on, its permanent seat was in New York. Interestingly, this is the Declaration of the United Nations. These are all the signatures of the United Nations, but they were all pledging to employ their full resources, military or economic, in this struggle for victory over Hitlerism. This is in the actual charter and declaration of United Nations. So that's what they were working to work against. And Hitlerism is really fascism. So the extremity of nationalism. Then New York. Abdu'l-Baha also designated New York City as the city of the covenant. And in a talk His Holiness Abdu'l-Baha gave at a reception by the New York Peace Society on the 13th of May, 1912, he stated, "The powers of earth cannot withstand the privileges and bestowals which God has ordained for this great and glorious century. It is a need and exigency of the time. Man can withstand anything except that which is divinely intended and indicated for the age and its requirements. Now praise be to God, in all countries of the world, lovers of peace are to be found, and these principles are being spread among mankind, especially in this country. Praise be to God." You see, the seat of the United Nations goes to New York City, right? The seat of the United Nations, and it's founded on the principles of the coming of together of humanity. Now, Abdu'l-Baha talking about New York, he's saying, he's praising the powers of earth and heaven are coming together, and it's the exigency of the time, and all countries of the world, lovers of peace are to be found, and these principles are being spread. And now he's talking about that New York, because this is where he is. He's talking to the New York Peace Society. He's praising New York. He's saying, I'm so proud that in this city, there's lovers are coming together from all countries of the world, and peace is being found in New York City. This thought is prevailing, and souls are continually arising as defenders of the oneness of humanity, endeavoring to assist and establish international peace. There is no doubt that this wonderful democracy will be able to realize it, and the banner of international agreement will be unfurled here. He literally says New York. He says the international agreement will be unfurled here to spread onward and outward among all the nations of the world. I think it's so cool. Abdul Baha. The beloved guardian refers to other significant foreign policies of the United States and its engagement in world affairs, and then states that the journey of the American nation, however long and tortuous the way, must lead through a series of victories and reverses. This is from the beloved guardian, Citadel of Faith. So, must lead through a series of victories and reverses to the political unification of the Eastern and Western hemispheres. These reverses are going to be conflicts, crises, disasters. So even we're moving, we think, oh my God, this disaster, this crisis. We still have to move through those victories and reverses to eventually this political unification of the Eastern and Western hemispheres, to the eventual emergence of a world government, the establishment of the lesser peace. This is what Jeannie was asking, lesser peace. So this will eventually happen, this establishment of a lesser peace as foretold by Baha'u'llah and foreshadowed by the prophet Isaiah. It must in the end culminate in the unfurling of the banner of the most great peace in the golden age of the dispensation of Baha'u'llah. Here's an extract, Citadel of Faith. Crises, tribulations are inevitable. This is page 33. This is some, just going to highlight on this because I want you to know that this road, I love this extract because this course is filled with so many wonderful extracts, and I encourage you to go through the whole thing. But why I love this quote is, it says, many and diverse are the setbacks and reverses which this nation extolled so highly by Abdul Baha, and occupying at present so unique a position among its fellow nations, must, alas, suffer. Talking about the American community, there's going to be so many setbacks, so many reverses. But the road leading to its destiny is long, thorny, and tortuous. Where have we heard long and thorny before? We're going to hear those terms. It's coming up. Long and thorny road. And this is in reference to the aspects of racial prejudices. It's a long and thorny road. The road leading to its spiritual destiny is long, thorny, and tortuous. The impact of various forces upon the structure and polity of that nation will be tremendous. Tribulations on a scale unprecedented in its history and calculated to purge its institutions, purify the hearts of people, to fuse its constituent elements and to weld it into one entity with its sister nations in both hemispheres are inevitable. So the reality is going to be a long, thorny, and tortuous road that the American community is going to have repeated setbacks and reverses. But the eventual outcome is going to be inevitable purification of its people and the fusing of its constituent elements that will eventually lead to the harmony and unity of not only the community of America, but also with its sister nations in both hemispheres. Dear John, where are we of time? We're almost done?
Yes, we are.
Okay, because I have just a few more slides on, we'll do this in the next part, okay? We'll wrap it up for today. And then we'll jump into this part, and then we'll finish up part 5 next time, okay?
Okay.
Excellent. What a wonderful gathering with you guys. So any questions at this point before we close it off with a prayer? We covered a lot today. We covered our section this is now showing how this North American Baha'i community is really the cradle and the last stalwart standing citadel, that is per se the only hope for a tottering civilization. And the beloved guardian goes in explaining how this North American Baha'i community is really the last hope in that sense, and putting his hopes on this community that they arise, and that we are the descendants of the dawnbreakers. And that's something, dear friends, as I mentioned, that you need to connect to your faith. Whether you're a Western believer or an Eastern believer, or connect to your history. Find out what the history of the dawnbreakers. I truly appreciate your moments with you this week. Thank you very much, dear John, Suraj John, Jeannie, all of you wonderful. Iman John, good to see all of you guys. And wishing you a wonderful week, and look forward to finishing up paragraphs 12 through 15 next time. Thank you.
Say the closing prayer for today. Oh my God. Oh, please, Iman, your turn.
Oh my God, thou seest me in my lowliness and weakness, occupied with the greatest undertaking, determined to raise thy word among the masses and to spread thy teaching among thy peoples. How can I succeed unless thou assist me with the breath of the Holy Spirit? Help me to triumph by the hosts of thy glorious kingdom, and shower upon me thy confirmations, which alone can change a gnat into an eagle, a drop of water into river and seas, and an atom into light and suns. O my Lord, assist me with thy triumphant and effective might, so that my tongue may utter thy praises and attributes among all peoples, and my soul overflow with the wine of thy love and knowledge. Thou art the omnipotent and the doer of whatsoever thou willest. Abdul Baha.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Love you, love you, love you.
Love you more, Alice. Can't wait for next week.
Thank you. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.
Great to see you, Iman Jan. Suraj Jan, always. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy, you guys.